Everybody, welcome to a brand new episode of Dan's Stream of Thought. I have T. Good day, good afternoon. It's probably morning for some of our viewers here. Probably, I don't know. There's some Australians out there. There's got to be some. We've got some Europeans in chat. I know we've got a lot of North Americans here in chat, both U.S. and Canadian. Um, it's very rare, actually. Well, it's sometimes rare. There it feels like there's a lot of people from like South America that tend to make themselves known in chat, and I think that's awesome. I think it's like a whole cultural thing that I really want to learn and get behind, and saying like, "Hey, from Brazil," and "Hey, from like Argentina," and stuff like that. And I'm like, dude, tell me, I want to know more. But hi, everybody. The podcast that basically says, I forgot how to sit down for any long periods of time. And you would think that as a streamer, you'd get used to it. But then, you start putting your body through these weird tests and you sit down and say, oh, this actually is painful for doing this too long. So we'll hopefully not make this super long today. I know I say that basically every week. And when I mean basically, I think I say it at least once a week. It's just kind of how it goes. Um, so I picked a very vague topic to kind of title this with for a couple different reasons. This week on Dan's Stream of Thought, we're going to be talking about the title is Timelessness in Post Production, and they go hand in hand. And you'll understand this the more I talk about it. This is going to be very much well, it's going to be less of a workshop, is what it sounds like, and more of a thought process and mental exercise as to what we normally do right here on Dan's Stream of Thought. We obviously here on Streamer Square, we do all kinds of workshops and we do all kinds of things. Thanks to Behind the Streams today for talking about actually a little bit about some similar things that I've been thinking about as well. It's not based on the topic we'll be talking about today, but it's worth mentioning. There's a lot of things that come from this topic, from mods and from people that are often in your stream but not necessarily on your stream, which is important to think about because one, they're not there necessarily 100% of the time. So there's a few things that you have to kind of think about as the streamer and be able to jot down or note or make it easier on those of your future, even if it's yourself, which is what it is for me. So we're going to be talking about all kinds of things. Um, let's talk about how you all are doing. Hi, everybody. Hello. I see 3 Canadians in chat. We've got many Canadians. I love it. Um, it'll be morning in 55 minutes for you. Yeah, I figured so. So you're right over there too, huh? Yeah, we've got people from all over the world, and that's like the best part of Twitch. It's got to be. It's got to be the best part of just internet online creation in general. You tend to, I think, when before I was really on Twitch and YouTube too much, there was like Twitter and Facebook, right? And I think most of the people that I interacted with, some of them were probably Australian, some of them were like European. That's like maybe it was a handful of people that were outside of my like major time zone. So it was different. It was something that I don't think a lot of people necessarily realize until you get into something sort of like this. Um, I noticed that every time we bring up sort of like US politics, we tend to get a couple people in chat. They're like, hey, I'm from the UK. I'm British. I have no idea what you're talking about. Can you catch me up? It actually happens more often than I expected it to, because I figured, well, considering how much that the world is sort of shaped around the US economy and the British economy, that they're kind of like they're intertwined. But then you think about the fact that most people don't care. So sometimes there are people that haven't really been educated throughout their life, or don't know where to look when they want to be educated and stuff like that. So it's an interesting topic, and I think that while that has really nothing to do with our topic today, I think it is important to keep in mind when streaming in general. So that's kind of your general tip of the week. Dan's general tips of the week usually come out of nowhere. There's so many things that happen where if you keep certain things in your mind, or certain ideas going out into your thought process, you might actually Create a different kind of show every time you turn on the start streaming button, and you hit let's go OBS. That's what it should be called. It shouldn't be called start streaming. It should be let's go OBS. Like your little pet, because sometimes you do have to massage it and like make sure it's calm and make sure it's not temperamental and freaking out and being like, oh yeah, we're not going to work for you today, or there's this one thing that's not going to work. I know that it works every other time that you stream, but this time we're going to say no. At the moment, it seems that the front page is BBC News covers more US news than UK news. Yeah, if you're talking about if you're talking about, you are talking about BBC. You're not talking about Twitch. For some reason, I thought you were talking about Twitch for a second. I was like, that would be interesting to put that on the front page because, like, that would be something I think that should be on the front page of Twitch. Lately, it's been a lot of DJing and music, but yeah, I mean, right now it's pretty big. I would say global, considering we're coming up to another presidential election, and considering how many things are happening, that there is a lot that the world should actually be concerned about. Um, as much as like during Brexit voting and stuff like that, probably a few months before that, that was pretty big in our news for a while. I'm sure it was big in Canadian news as well because it's big, it's huge. These are big things that the world should know about. That's the beauty of the internet too, um, which is interesting to sort of pay attention to. Um, and that actually directly does go into today's topic because we're talking about timelessness. Let's define timelessness before I get too far into that topic because we can talk about that for actual days. Um, let's talk about timelessness. And the reason we're going to talk about timelessness. So the word timelessness means very literally something out of time, meaning you don't know when somebody recorded something necessarily, inherently, I should say. Not like you can't figure it out if you paid attention to like certain things. Somebody talked about wearing a mask outside, so you obviously know it's about 2020 or like any point in 2020. Talking about COVID-19, it's either after or during the year of 2020. Um, People talking about that stuff like that, you can sort of figure it out. Oh, this was around the time of this, and obviously there's timestamps and dates on all kinds of videos, and everything that you put on the internet is pretty much timestamped. So you can figure those things out. That's not what that means necessarily, though. What we're talking about is talking about things that aren't necessarily, hey, so today in the news there was this, especially if your show isn't a news show for that matter. If you look at things like The Daily Show and you look at things like John Oliver's show, they're very much not timelessness shows, but the way they put them together, and if you do watch some of these shows, I urge you to pay attention to this. They're very much news shows. They do have to sort of fit in this little pocket of this is what we're talking about because this is what's happening today. But listen to the way they write it, and there's a couple times where you might find yourself thinking, "Oh, this actually could have been talked about maybe several years ago, or several months ago, or even in the future," because they're talking about lessons that were reaching through a global audience, or thinking they're talking about how a quote just referenced history and how that is affecting today and how how today is going to become history at some point in time in the future and stuff like that. And it's more general and broad rather than just saying, well, hey, today this is the date of September 29th, 2020, around 3:12 Pacific. Like you could talk about those things, but you have to ask yourself, is it relevant to the conversation that you're having or the concept of your show in general? And this is sort of the mentality that I want a lot of you guys to think about when streaming in general. We learned this in very early in my communication career, and obviously in my communication education, was keeping your shows and keeping your topics timeless, especially when you're writing, tends to it tends to not date things so quickly, and it tends to make things seem at least like it is relevant when somebody else is reading in the future. Because I'll tell you right now, if you start writing things, and you can look at the book that we wrote too, between myself and Saber. there are obviously a bunch of things in here that's out of date, but if you look at the way we write it as if um it's going to not be the same as when you read it. But the at least the point of why you would use a tool like this or where you would use a tool like this, or if there's something similar that happens to be there in the future that is similar to this, and you're like, oh, I understand this because they taught me how to do the old version of it. Um, it it's not talked about so detailed in that matter. Details are a big part of timelessness too. When you look at every little detail about something individually, whether it's somebody's stream, whether it's somebody's show, whether it's a how to do something specifically on a platform or settings or whatever it might be that might change in the future. If you go more and more and more into little details and harp on it and kind of get stuck in like little lost in the weeds there, it's very easy for that to never become relevant after that, or at least stay relevant after that. And the reason this has been on my mind, and after now that we've kind of, it, I'll go a little bit more into timelessness because I know that that's probably confusing as to where we're going, but it's not necessarily a simple concept other than just saying try not to talk about things like they're right in front of you, and like they're things that only can happen right now. Talk about them as if they are ideas and thoughts and your mind saying, hey, this is something that I could, this is a lesson I can use in the future. And then you have to follow that up with, well, we're not all teaching lessons, Dan. We're not all, this is not all Dan's stream of thought. We're just trying to entertain folks and have a good time. And we'll get to that because I very much think that that is a mentality I need to get more involved with, because simply, if you're simple and to the point of I just want to have fun and entertain somebody, that's probably some of the most timeless content, honestly. Um, because you're making jokes with your friends. If you stream with other people, you're more than likely, hello kitty. Hi. So you're more than likely making your own inside jokes, you're developing camaraderie with each other, you're talking about a thing that's happening at a very given moment in time, things like that. But if you sit there and you just say like the latest memes over and over again, I feel like you're making jokes that only last a certain amount of time. And I don't know if people still do say this, but I would purposely say like old memes in chat just to see what happened. And I would legitimately get people that would say the word like cringe and stuff in chat, because that's what it becomes to a lot of people. It's like, oh, that's such an old dead meme. We don't want to hear that anymore. And then it starts to feel like, oh, this is kind of weird and I feel awkward about this. Or people will say, now I feel old, or whatever it might be. And you could sort of roll that into a ball of saying, "Hey, do you guys remember when this happened? This was totally a thing." Um, instead, I mean, you could do that. I think that very much doesn't make it timeless anymore, but that does help from saying, "Oh, I know exactly when this video was made because that was when this was relevant." You could sort of roll off of that and snowball, but that's not really the point. What is my point? I don't know anymore. Um, the really the timelessness behind what you do every day in a show is important for a couple reasons. And even though we have that definition of, say, let's be here, let's be present, and let's talk about things that are happening in the video game or whatever it might be, and just have a little fun so that this could be watched at any time. It's because of when you go to like put it up onto YouTube, or when you go to take your live stream and you turn that into something that maybe it's just a VOD, maybe you don't actually turn it into anything, and somebody just wants to go back and watch it one day, is that still going to be entertaining to somebody when they go back and watch it? And that's really the reason I've been thinking about this recently. It's the reason I came up with this topic today, or at least brought the topic today. We've had this conversation before in an earlier show, but it's a little bit different. I've been working on my YouTube channel, for my gaming YouTube channel a little bit, and I've been working on putting together a lot of um, putting together VODs and being able to edit them and make them watchable for an hour-long show, turn it into like a 30-minute show or like a 25-minute show, and you sit there and you say like, man, okay, what do I keep? Because we've all done this, right? We've all looked at an editing bay, and I mean, maybe not all of us, but a lot of us probably have, content creator wise, or even mods. And we were talking about this in the mod show before. Well, Wes and Rini were talking about this. It's like, hey, well, the question was from earlier. What do I do when maybe I feel like I should be compensated for something I'm doing for my streamer? And how do I approach that? And that's very much part of this because you have to sort of make these decisions, and it's exactly what I'm talking about. I've had mods edit videos for me, and I've done one of a couple things. Either I've got a big, I mean, a lot of us streamers do. We got a big library full of games. We've got game keys galore that companies either send us, or if you're like me, I've been subbed to Humble Bundle monthly since it began, so I just have all of those keys. Um, for $12 a month, you just get a bucket load of keys, and you're just like, oh, what am I going to do with all these? So I started giving them away to community members and stuff like that. And then eventually, we just kind of stopped doing that on the regular, and now it's like, oh, you just made this thumbnail for me, and they don't ask for payment like ever. That's one of my mods that does both my editing sometimes and my thumbnail creation, and he never really asks for anything. But I'm like, dude, take some of these keys. I don't care how many, just take a couple. Um, and he'll usually take like one sometimes, or maybe if there's something he's really into, he'll take two. But for the most part, he's like, okay, I'll take this. This seems fine. Um, and and then there's been other times where he's taken entire like 3 hour shows and turned it into like 45 minutes to an hour. I'm like, well, how long did that take you? And then I paid him actual like an amount per hour, and he's like, oh, that dude, I didn't expect this. Totally fine. And that's the weird part. It's like mods obviously don't expect stuff like that because there's a whole reason they volunteered in the first place. But as I was saying in the chat before the show, is don't be afraid to broach a topic like that, because I'll go back to the topic now, because we all get down to a point of where exactly is the point where we have to actually make real artistic decisions on what's going to go inside of a video. And thinking about those things is so important. In Hunter Mod Chat, we have a massive document with keys to give away. Even doing giveaways regularly, they build up pretty fast. Oh yeah, dude. Between Humble Monthly and how many keys I just get in my emails, um, it's ridiculous. And that's a good way to reward some of your mods if they don't really ask ever for payment. And maybe they're doing stuff because you can't afford to hire a professional editor or something like that. Because that's what a lot of like my mods have been. My mods have been a lot of volunteers um, that don't really do it for a living. They have their own jobs and stuff like that, and they're like, "Hey, I had to have some of these skills. I'll do this for a while. Do those keys expire after a while? No, not that I've never seen one of our keys expire. There's some like trial keys, or like they move platforms, and then you have to get like a different key for that platform, but that's super rare. That's super rare. Usually the keys last forever. Hey, do you need attention? Do you need attention? I'll give you attention. Okay. Um, so yeah, there's like Blizzard and Uplay keys that have attention, or the sorry, that have some dates, but like I said, it's pretty rare. And if you want to use that to reward your mods and stuff like that, I say consider that a bonus to a lot of people. I still think that we all run on a currency, and we can't pay our bills with video games and stuff like that. But sometimes it saves some money, so it really depends. But if you're a streamer out there, like offer a couple bucks at least, like do something. It's a business. You run a business. You're doing this to make money. Don't be on the edge of I don't want to spend money, and I'm not going to spend money even though people are doing work for me. It's important to think that way because it will just I don't know if get you in trouble is the right word, but or the right phrase, but it will it'll backfire on you one day when you sit there and you're like, "Oh man, why won't these people do work for me anymore?" And then you sort of sit there stranded. Trust me, it's just investment is not something that is just for bonus or just for return. It's legitimately something that you got humans that are under you, or you got humans that are working with you or for you. Pay attention to them. Um, but maybe this will help. Maybe this will help with making you more comfortable in paying for stuff like this. Has anybody ever watched a video and sort of fell off of the video or sort of like became uninterested as soon as you heard about, or as soon as you like became aware that you knew exactly when that video was recorded, and you knew exactly when that video was, or that maybe it was a VOD that was streamed, and you knew exactly when that was happening, and you're like, oh, this kind of this no longer becomes that entertaining to me. It's more of just I know I'm watching the past. On the other hand, have you seen some of your favorite YouTubers make it known that you know exactly when they recorded that? I'm genuinely curious. To me, I know my answer. My answer is basically yes and no. Well, the first question to be yes, and the second question to be no. So my favorite YouTubers, that some of my favorite YouTubers never let me really understand when something was known or when something was recorded. Like, obviously there are times where, especially right now, watching videos go live where people are doing digital versions of it because they're not being in the same room together. There's obviously those are hard to get around, but you can tell it's like, oh, this is the COVID year. These are the COVID videos. We know what's happening here. This is just what's happening. Like, one of my favorite shows, Beer and Board Games, is going through a weird struggle right now, because they are they're doing their show digitally on Zoom, even though it's a show that four people get together, drink and play board games once a week, and they're not doing it that way anymore. But the thing that I want to pay attention to, or at least show as part of that, is it's hard to notice even with that, because they don't ever really mention it, right? At no point did they ever, if, from what I'm remembering, for the past like 6 months, have they ever mentioned, "Oh, if you don't know why we're doing this, this is why." They've legitimately never mentioned that. It's just it seems it's obvious, right? We all know what's going on, so they just did it digitally, and they said, "Hey, here's the show." The show went absolutely normally. It was in a different format, and then hopefully sometime soon they'll be able to get back to it, but it feels so seamless when they do stuff like that. It feels so seamless. In some cases, it's very important via real things happening to know when something was filmed, but others it really doesn't. So here's the thing. Yeah, if it's something about news, if it's something about, if it's a video about, let's say, um, Black like actual civil rights movements that's happening, and why you're making that video now, it might be important to show off, like, hey, this is when it's being filmed, stuff like that. But if it's for pure entertainment, which is basically what we're talking about here, right? If it's for general entertainment, like something here on Twitch, you're more than likely not going to need that, right? So while most people, it seems like a few people in chat don't notice things like this, I urge you to find, let's see, I wish I had a better example. Because I know I've seen it and I can recall like the events that I've seen, but I couldn't tell you which videos they were. Mostly because I turned them off. Um, but there's times at which there's got to be a little instance somewhere in a video where somebody made a very specific joke to a meme that was relevant at a very for a very short amount of time. Um, and you see that and you're like, oh, I I remember when this was. this obviously isn't funny anymore. Like calling everything sus. Here's a good example. Streamers are calling everything sus, and I saw somebody freak out in chat. They got real mad. I'm not saying that I would ever get this mad, but somebody got real mad in chat the other day. Um, it was like yesterday. I was watching the stream, and they said, the streamer said, "Oh, you're not gonna find that ghost. It's real sus." And then somebody freaked out. They're like, "Stop saying everything is sus. Not everything is Among Us. Not like we're playing not Among Us right now. Let's not do this." And I'm like, "Whoa, okay, hold on. Let's calm down. It's not that serious." Obviously, I was just watching and I didn't really say anything like this, but I was thinking this. I was like, "Okay, hold on." And it's sort of, this was part of the thought process that came into this topic, which was like, okay, so if somebody gets this mad about this, right? They can't be alone. I think, and I genuinely think this about everything that happens when you watch people freak out about anything. If somebody's mad about it, they are not alone. Nobody is that unique, right? Nobody is going to have that unique of a problem to where that's the only person that's going to be upset. Now, does that mean you need to worry about the other people that are going to be upset that way? No, not necessarily. But this is an extreme example, kind of. Um, if if you heard, "Oh, that's sus," in a video that came out about something that wasn't Among Us, maybe recorded right now during this time, and you heard that in like let's say a Hades video, because Hades videos are, I'm making Hades videos right now, and let's say I said something like that in a Hades video, and you saw that 3 years from now, and you heard, "Oh, that's sus." Now, for most people, that might say, "Oh, yeah, I remember. Yeah, that was, aha, yeah, that was a thing. Okay, cool." But the thing I would ask myself is, does that actually add to the content anymore? Or does that become a joke that you edited in or kept in on purpose and said, "This is going to be funny forever"? Probably not. Now, does that mean that all of your other jokes are going to go along the same way? Probably not. But they're not memes, right? They're not time oriented jokes, more than likely. They're probably stuff that you said, maybe made the joke based on what was happening in the video game, or maybe you made the joke based on what's happening in front of you or on the screen, or whatever it might be, something that is part of your personal life that you've been talking about for a while. It's it's not necessarily something that is going to get old based on the metaverse, right? We'll call it the metaverse this time. What I mean by that is the outside of your content, right? Something happening outside of your content that you have nothing really to do with, other than the fact that maybe you played Among Us for like a month or something like that, and that was a big part of your thing for a while, but it wasn't part of that video. So you play Among Us, you have all these videos that go up, and all of a sudden, um, you have a bunch of, maybe a year later, you have a flood in of viewers that come in from a different game or something else that you did or whatever it might be. And they go back and they watch some of your old videos based on something else that wasn't Among Us, but it was recorded during the Among Us phase. And they watch those, and you hear somebody say, "Oh, that's sus. That's sus that Hades is just trying to kill Zagreus because, he's just sitting there in his ivory tower being all goofy, and oh, that's so sus." And I guarantee 3 years from now, many people are going to be like, "Why is he talking? Why is he? What is suspicious about this? I don't understand what is going on." And it becomes an inside joke that nobody understands the inside of, right? So that sort of brings in this whole idea of, you just alienated any part of that audience that has never even heard of Among Us on in the content creation type of world, right? So is it funny now because of right here in this space where we're all on Twitch, we all know what Among Us is, and if I were to say that joke right then and there, is that funny now? Will you probably, if you're a super popular chat, will you see 100 lulls in chat and be like, oh yeah, I made a good joke. Probably. But does that make it something that will last at least generally forever? I don't mean like forever. It's not, not every joke you're gonna make is gold. I promise. As a person who doesn't make comedy gold 24/7, I totally will tell you right now that's not a thing that is going to happen. But you want to be able to up your odds as best as possible. It's a joke with an expiration date, right? And a lot of jokes have expiration dates, I would say, but for the most part, you can't really tell when that expiration date is going to come. With a joke like a meme like that, or like what were you doing in electrical, that kind of meme, and you say stuff like that outside of the context, I can I can generalize where that expiration date is going to be. I can say it's probably going to be maybe less than a month from now that expiration date of that joke is going to go. First of all, if you're going to make a joke that has an expiration date from less than a month, that's going to be a hard one to sell in the future at any point. But two, if you can call that expiration date, that's definitely a joke that you're going to sit there and say, is that worth keeping in an edit? And that's why we're talking about post production too. So I want to make it clear that it is perfectly okay. And obviously, I'm not the authority on this, but it's perfectly okay to make those kinds of jokes in a live stream. I want to delineate this. I want to be able to split this idea in two. If you're live streaming and you're making in jokes and you think 99% of the people in your chat understand it, I personally think go ahead and make that joke. I think it's totally fine. I think if you're making that content for that here and now, for the live audience, totally fine. Comedians do it every day. They talk about topical things all the time. It makes sense. However, you will see comedians on podcasts don't necessarily do that because they know it's being recorded. They know that people listen to podcasts years later. Um, because most people are probably like me and if they find a podcast they like, they usually go back and listen to it from the beginning and then catch up. I've done that with several podcasts, which is why I get obsessed with certain ones, and that's all I listen to for like 6 months. But they know that people do that, and they purposely don't make jokes with an expiration date because of that. However, sometimes you can slip them in here and there, and like I said, a live broadcast. My cat is taking up all of my desk. A live broadcast. Feel free to make those jokes. Feel free. I think there's no problem with it. But this is the post production part. If you have an editor or you edit yourself, tell this to them or keep this in mind. This is the chance you have to extend the life of all of your entertainment for as long as possible. Cut the in jokes. Cut the times where you talk to chat, when you know, maybe sometimes thank subscribers, because I usually use my VODs. I don't really have time to record outside of stream anymore. But I usually cut out like some of the people that resubscribe, and it has nothing to do with them. I obviously love them for subscribing and resubscribing, but it's not necessarily something that I think belongs in a video that somebody's going to watch years later, especially if somebody makes like, you know, a joke name or something like that about it. Sometimes it's funny, sometimes if they make a joke about you, if it's like Dano Dads or you know, I don't know, do we have any other ones? Like Dan's mustache just subscribed to you. It's like, what? Dan's mustache subscribed to me, but my mustache is right here. What are you talking about? You can keep that stuff in. I mean, that's about you. That's not going to ever really leave, and you're recording yourself with a mustache anyway, so it makes sense. You could definitely make that argument and say, hey, you can leave that in if you want to. But if, like, going back to the whole sus jokes, it's like, oh, Hades is by event. That's sus. I don't think that's worth keeping in a video. I don't think that's necessarily something that you think is going to live on forever. So maybe that's when it comes to talking about like the post production of your editing of your streams to then put onto a platform that may never disappear. Maybe that's times where you maybe want to cut that out. I know that I watch videos that are like 8 years old now. Beer and board games, I go back and watch some of their old videos all the time. And the one thing I adore from them is they don't really they don't nothing not, it's funny. Like no matter what time I'm listening to it. You know the saying where people talk about movies that hold up? Usually that has to do with they made it with not gimmicky technology. Uh they didn't use timely jokes. They made something that was in the moment, there and now. The story was enclosed within itself, all these things. And you go back and you watch it and you're like, this is still entertaining because I don't feel pulled out of it, right? I don't feel pulled out of something saying, oh, this was during a time where this was happening, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Um, I don't necessarily know if this, I haven't gone back and watched it. It's on Netflix now. I actually do want to go watch it, but if you've ever seen Quantum of Solace, the second, I believe, Daniel Craig 007 movie, um, I remember watching that for the first time and saying, "This is whoa, this is weird. I don't know if I can follow this. I don't know what's happening here. I don't know this, this, and this." And then you think about it and you're like, "Oh, that was written by the director and Daniel Craig because it was during the writer's strike. It was during a point at which none of the writers were gonna be able to do anything. They were just sitting back watching these things and being like, "Oh, they have to write this on their own. We have to figure this out. We got to do this, this, and this." So what they did was they took exactly where they left off from Casino Royale and they just wrote from there. So it actually blew my mind when somebody told me, "Oh, okay, Quantum of Solace is bad on its own, but do yourself a favor, watch Casino Royale." And then immediately watch Quantum of Solace, and it makes it 3 times better, 4 times better. And then you think about, oh, it was during the writer's strike. Oh, it was Daniel Craig and the director that wrote it. And you have all these things that all these outliers that affect it, and you're sitting there going, "Oh, there's reasons for this." I don't feel necessarily taken out for it because you've just built that context back in. Okay, I understand. And unless you're a movie buff, you're gonna forget that almost every time somebody talks to you about Quantum of Solace and says that whether or not you liked it, you're like, "Oh, that movie sucked. That was garbage." I don't remember much about it other than I'm not liking it. And that's gonna come around and do those things. I think it's the same mentality. I don't think it's the same situation, but I think it's the same mentality as when you make content that is not timeless and somebody goes back and watches it years and years later. Hold on, let me catch up in chat and then I will continue because there's definitely more to talk about there. Um, would that be more relevant if it was something like GTA 5 rather than Hades? How so? Can you explain that? Um, the idea is much the same. Are you referring to the previous comment? We can get 1 month. That's legit. Yeah, we'll see. Um, Memes by definition are infectious idea that spreads like wildfire, same as fads. They always get inoculated against, and you get infected. So that's actually the biggest reason I don't like memes is because of this topic today. I don't repeat too many memes on my stream. Sometimes I do because there's some that are like hilarious, I think, and some that are like they get to a point where they actually. There's a couple memes. There's like I would say 3 total memes that have had me on the floor laughing. Um, but that's really it. And I genuinely think that the reason I think this is because memes are not timeless. And for some reason that just takes me out of enjoying the thing. I'm like, "Oh, this is funny with like a billion lines of context." Or if you already understand that it's a meme, and then if you already understand what memes are, there's so much prerequisite to understand and find certain memes funny. And if you live in that world, dude, I envy you. I really do. Envy anybody that can sit there and understand pretty much any meme that's thrown at them and then laugh at them hysterically. I understand most of the memes that come out, and I don't find most of them funny. But that legitimately comes from the fact that hello. It comes from the fact that I don't understand how that's just not an inside joke and how it's funny on its own. And that's probably me just being a nerd, stuff like that. But That's sort of how I feel with this same topic of if you continuously make jokes in your stream or talk about things that are very much inside jokes to you specifically, um, that's fine. But if you talk about things outside of your stream that nobody will know unless they keep up with the trend or keep up with what's happening outside of your stream at that date and time, you may lose your audience. And I want you to think about things like this when you're creating content, when you're streaming and stuff like this, because I do genuinely think that a simple way to make a better show is to live within your stream for a little bit. Um, it doesn't mean just forget everything in the outside world. That doesn't mean totally isolate yourself, but that does mean that I think if you focus and you maybe write a little bit, sit down and write like an idea you want to talk about during the show, and just get that thought onto a piece of paper. And if it's creative and it's something that came from your mind, or if it's something from a game that came up, or it's it feels genuine, right? If it feels genuine, I think that will just last in people's minds. And I think that you will create a better show. Not I'm not saying your show is bad by any means. I'm talking to anybody specifically, but I think you will genuinely create a show that people will remember. And I think that's important here. Um, we talk about this quite a bit actually, and talking about the fact that there's a lot of viewers that just kind of forget streamers, like, it truly, they just forget streamers. It's easy to forget content creators right now because there's just so gosh darn many of them. Me included. There's just a lot. There's so many. Um, and one way, and if you look at like some of the most popular content creators out there, you can probably remember things that they did. You can probably remember events that happened, or jokes that they've made, or inside things that have come from their shows. And it genuinely, it's from this idea of they've created something that is timeless, and they've created something that will last at least for the foreseeable future, not maybe not forever, but for the foreseeable future, instead of something that says, oh, this is only going to last until this meme dies, or this is only going to be funny until this meme dies. You know what I mean? Do you guys see this? You see this lady? Sorry. Time you were talking about sus and Hades, which itself is a specific meme. However, in GTA 5, because it's such a long running game, it could be any time until sus is said. Huh? It could be any time until sus is said. The same for my. I guess I'm still missing your question. So I don't think the game matters, because what you're talking about there is has nothing to do with the game itself. If you're developing a story within a game, like a long running game, also I argue that GTA 5 is not a longer running game than something like Hades, especially for a channel like mine. Especially if you think about games like that, which like Isaac, right? People have been playing Isaac for a lot longer than other people have been playing GTA 5. So I don't think the game matters. I think the game is irrelevant there, because really what it comes down to is what you're talking about on stream sometimes, or I would say most of the time, really has nothing to do with the game itself. You're talking to your community, you're chatting with them. How's your day? How's it going? Oh, my day was great. My I went and did this. Hey, today um I used my blender for like the fifth time. I made another set of smoothies because they're delicious. Because I love the taste of strawberries and lemonade. It's pretty great. And stuff like that. Like I think if you really think about it, most of the time you're talking, it's hardly about really what's happening in the game. I don't think the game matters really very much for conversation. But when it does, at least the game is on stream, and at least it's within context of what's happening right in front of you. So that usually goes pretty okay. Meme can still die within the lifespan of the. Oh yeah, of course, of course. That's kind of what I mean. I think memes in general are just they're ticking time bombs. Not for like any explosion, but ticking time bombs to just like fizzle out, and like they're like a 2 liter of soda. That's what they're like. They're like a 2 liter of soda. Once you open that thing, it don't matter if you seal it back up. It's got an expiration date on whether all the bubbles are going to be gone or not. It really does. But why not instead of, opening a bottle of soda, why don't you just, get a little bit of water in your Brita filter, right? Because, like, yeah, you could drink it all. You're probably gonna drink it all before, you have to or before it goes bad, or before you start getting rust or mold in there or something like that, even though it's probably plastic, you shouldn't get rust, but if it does, then that my story still holds true. But, it's but the point is, like, water's gonna last, right? Water's at least not gonna go bad. There's hopefully there's nothing living in your water, especially after you filter it, to where it's gonna really go bad. Why not get some water in your filter rather than opening that 2 liter of soda? Why not make some jokes and have some conversations about stuff that is not gonna die of relevance? Why not make content to where you can watch it a year or 2 later and still have a good time and still remember, it's like, "Oh, man, we had a good time playing Ark." I can go back and watch some of my Ark streams and legitimately laugh my butt off, because we're fighting dinosaurs, we're running away from dinosaurs, or we're talking about how dinosaurs are cool, and we're talking about our favorite dinosaurs and flying through the sky and all these things, and, like, that happen to be within the world of whatever it is. I don't think I even understood truly what a meme was when I was playing Ark, but I remember watching going back and watching some of those old videos and being like, "Hey, I still have fun watching these videos because it has to do with what's happening right in front of me, and I don't have to understand anything that's happening outside the video, you know?" I think it's important. And I say that because I see a lot of people meme, like, they say memes, like the repeat memes, and sometimes they're funny, sometimes they're not, but I can't help but think that if I were to watch this a year from now and I'm watching, like, a past video, I can't help but think I would never ever find this funny, and I don't think most people would, um, unless they have a really nostalgic mind, which that's totally fair too. Hi, Maul. What's up, dude? Excuse me, have you heard my jokes? I have, Wes. You're a funny guy. You're a funny guy. In some cases, very. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. We've covered that. Is anybody confused about what I mean by this? I know this is one of those topics that again becomes a little bit more of a concept rather than a actual thing you can necessarily put into practice. But I think that most people do this already. Um, but when you go to re-edit something or you go to put something together, just keep this in mind. I wanted is more like this is a reminder of what we talked about in the past before. This is a reminder of saying, like, let's if you want your content to last and you want your content to be something that can last far after you're done creating content or far after you created that piece of content specifically, like, maybe you keep creating content for the rest of your life, maybe you slow down, maybe you speed up, whatever it is. If you just have a bunch of stuff in the backlog that people can go watch forever, kind of immortalizes you, and you never have to worry about relevance. I think this wasn't on my mind, but this kind of popped up just recently, just in the past couple minutes. People worry about relevance all the time and whether or not they're relevant. I'll tell you right now, I don't think any of that matters. I don't think people being relevant matters too much. It does obviously help with, like, momentum because, like, Twitch and YouTube tend to be momentum based platforms. It helps with momentum, but I'll tell you right now, I've found channels that were 6 years old and I went back and I just watched everything. And I had a great time watching all of that. And I gave each of that person's videos a brand new view, even though they hadn't created content in like 2 years. It was great. It was a good time. And I had a good time. It was a pleasure for me to go back and watch. And none of it felt like I was watching something necessarily old. Like, some of the quality was a little bit lower. but that didn't really matter too much. The content was what mattered, and the content didn't feel old. The content didn't feel stale. It didn't feel like I've watched this 100 times over since this person made it by somebody else, which is a big concept here. Repeating memes on stream kind of, I mean, you're just repeating what somebody else said. And if you come across that viewer that has watched somebody else say that before you said it, it's going to put them off, guaranteed. You want food or something? Hmm? Can I pet you? Want scratches? I agree that dad jokes and puns can be left because they never get old. Uh, there's as much as I despise dad jokes, I don't really despise dad jokes because I mean you're right. Prendium, you're 100% right. Dad jokes and puns, they're not necessarily context based. And I think that I mean, that's actually a perfect example, right? That's pretty much exactly what I'm talking about. If you think about puns and you think about dad jokes, think about why, even though people cringe at them, even though I cringe at them, think about why people still say them, why people still think they're funny. I mean, think about it. They're not, they're timeless jokes. Like dad jokes are pretty timeless. They don't lose context. They don't need context to be quote unquote funny. Some of them aren't very funny, but some people think they are, and I definitely respect them for that because well, they are exactly what I'm talking about. Dad jokes are timeless. Now, if you want to go just to have a full stream full of dad jokes, you do you as hard as you possibly can. Go do it. Go have a whole stream full of dad jokes. I probably won't watch it, but I'm sure some people will have an absolute blast. Um, some people will have an absolute blast watching nothing but dad jokes. But that is exactly my point. Like dad jokes are not time sensitive. They don't have expiration dates, you know? Sometimes times change. Sometimes sometimes you get to a point where certain jokes like they're not funny anymore because they've been outdone, or certain jokes aren't funny anymore because they've the times have just changed, you know, stuff like that. But I'll tell you right now that a joke getting stale because it's said too much, that probably means it was a funny joke. It probably means somebody really got a kick out of it. So much so that it went viral to the point where everybody was just talking about it. That doesn't make it, that's not a bad joke. That just means it was really good and it was maybe too good for its own kind and it just got overplayed. The same thing with like, you know, songs that were on the radio too much. They were good songs and we loved them when they first came out. And then when you heard it for the millionth times, you're like, I don't want to listen to this anymore. But then think about it. You go forward in time to where like today and listening to like old 90s jams that were on the radio a million times over, you're like, "Oh yeah, that song was good," you know? She said she's a skater boy. She said to you later, boy. It would help if I knew all the words. Um, but the point is, like that song got really, really old because of how many times we heard it and how dorky it was. But it was still like you listen to it now, it was a fun show, or sorry, a fun song. You're like, oh, this is great. Dude, amazing. Avril Lavigne, yeah, people loved her. People probably still do love her. I don't know. There's like a rumor that she's not actually her anymore. There's a rumor that somebody else is pretending to be her. It's a weird rumor. I don't know where it came from, but there's legitimately a rumor that somebody else is pretending to be Avril Lavigne and the original Avril Lavigne is dead. I don't understand. I don't know where this came from. I don't know how it started, but that is the weird rumor. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't explain it to you. I just know that it exists for 15 years. But right, but my point is it exists, right? I don't know. The clone theory. Yeah, it's something, man. It's either she's a clone or somebody that looks just like her that has replaced her. It's an old rumor. I don't know where it came from. I don't know how it started, but yeah, it's a real rumor. But that's what I'm talking about is like if you listen to the song again, you more than likely won't go, "Oh, this isn't funny because they're referencing things that or this isn't a good song because they're referencing things that were in that time during that world." You had to be there, right? You have to be there to understand this song. That probably makes it a bad song. This song wasn't really like that. It may not be a great song, like, it may not be a giant piece of art, but it's still like it's a song you could probably listen to today and understand that hey, this was fun at one point. I remember this being fun in my life. I remember this and this is I can jam to this, you know. But some people have memories of things and like, oh, I don't want to listen to this from because it's so old and stuff like that. But you understand my point, right? Make content for you and not for the times. That's really the theory here. That's really the idea to work off of, and the whole reason that we're talking about timelessness and post production. Um, make content that's for you and for an audience. Doesn't have to be your current audience, but an audience that you think will enjoy it. Somebody make it something that you can show later on in life and be like, I made this. This was fun. I had a good time. Yeah, I may be a different person now, and it might be slightly embarrassing because this was me at a younger age and stuff like this. But it was a good time. And you might like this. If you didn't know this was me, you'd probably enjoy this, you know? And you make that content and you make it stick in there and you like the reason that post production is part of the topic is because you can still make that even if you're making timely jokes and on like topical jokes on stream. You can edit around those things and you can still make timeless videos based on them, and you can show them off later and people may find them later. um if I go to my YouTube channel, I've never had that many subscribers there, but I had an influx of subscribers, like a couple hundred, like maybe a year ago. And um a lot of those people went back and watched some of my old videos. And if you look at the videos they watched, they're videos where I'm talking about the game and I'm talking about the stuff happening right in front of them. And they don't really get old. Yeah, my voice is different because I'm using a different microphone, and you can barely hear, like, the intonation of what I'm saying and stuff like this, but the story's still the same. The story doesn't get old. The story never changed, right? There's obviously gonna be contextual things for certain people where maybe it's an old ARC video. You're like, "Oh, man, I really, really loved ARC, but I really hate it now." And, you know, they're like, "I don't wanna watch this video." But it's through their own bias and not through, you know, just what your content is. And understand that. Influx of a raider, particular set of streams. For my YouTube, channel, no, I think they just happened because I had a couple really popular videos and people subscribed from there. Um, and then I started promoting my channel a little bit more after because my Twitch channel got a little bit bigger and stuff like that. My Twitch channel's it's a lot more popular than my YouTube channel for that. Um, but no, I'm specifically talking about my YouTube channel when I got like a influx of, like I said, a couple hundred subscribers, people, so followers essentially. And yeah, people started watching old videos. But the same things happen on Twitch too. Um, you know, when Dr. Lupo raids you here on Twitch, and you're playing Tarkov, and his chat is full of a bunch of Tarkov fans, you might get some of your old Tarkov VODs getting more views. That absolutely happens too. And what's interesting about Tarkov for me is I'm very focused in the game when I'm playing the game. So I'm more than likely not talking about too much outside of the game. So those are watchable videos still, even though they're still kind of new. So no matter if I was talking about something anyway, it would still be relevant. But that's what I'm talking about. Is they're still relevant within what you're watching. So you're not sitting there going, "What the heck is he talking about?" But he's actually talking about the thing that's in front of them, and you can really sit there and go, "Hey, this is what's going on." I sometimes I'll get comments on old YouTube videos of them instructing me what to do, like telling me what to do in a game that I haven't played for like 3 years, and I'm like, "Hey," and I'll respond to him sometimes, "Hey, thanks for the tip. This is a 4-year-old video. I'm glad that you still like it because I really am glad that they still like it after 4 years, 3 years after me not really doing anything with it. Um, I'm glad you still like it. I if I ever play this game again, I will be sure to invoke that tip that you just gave me because that's awesome. But I promise you that thinking about things in a timeless manner will 100% um, give your content longevity. And I think overall, you will be happier with your content too. You won't grow out of it, is what I mean. Really, like why make content that you're going to grow out of? Essentially, you know what I mean? Oh, thanks. Let me go dust that off. Yeah, no, truly. I still get content. I still get comments on some of my old Gungeon speedruns, and those videos aren't that old, but they're old enough to be like, oh, I haven't played Gungeon in like maybe I don't know 6 7 months now, probably maybe a bit longer than that. And they're like, oh yeah, and you got to do this when you make sure you take this corner because this map is mapped out this way. And we're like, oh, I I think I know what they're referring to. But it's like that was like 9 months ago. I don't remember exactly what I was mapping out there. Okay, that's cool. It's still part of what's going on. That's I think that's the biggest compliment is when somebody can still comment on what you're doing on the video and how they're enjoying the video rather than talking about things that are relevant or irrelevant to the context of that video. You know. All right, friends. I hope that made sense. I know that most of our streams, you might have to listen to like 2 or 3 times to really get it because sometimes I don't understand always what I'm talking about. But I think we got the point across of timelessness and when you're actually putting content together afterwards, you are thinking about that timelessness and you're thinking about keeping your content viable to be watched after it was recorded and not just for the time it was recorded. Um, we have a real big, I think, cancerous trend in content creation in the last couple of years of people trying to strike the iron when it's hot, but taking that meaning incorrectly. So yes, sometimes you want to strike the iron while it's hot because people will want to watch it then and there. But a lot of a lot of content I'm seeing is not only are they trying to strike the iron while it's hot, they're trying to throw in other hot memes to then have them dogpile on each other. And those are the things that are going to make content get old real fast. And I urge anybody watching this to try to stay away from that because you may get an influx of video views when you first release a certain video. But if you want anybody to watch that video after, your odds of having people want to stay around to watch the entire video go way down, way down when you don't see those things anymore. Reaction videos are interesting. So y- I think I think people understand that they're doing this, and that's perfectly fine. Um, but that's an interesting topic too. Like, obviously, and I'll tell you this right now. If you do any of these things that we've talked about today, there's nothing wrong with it necessarily. I just think that you could be doing something to make them actually last forever instead of having them last for that certain amount of time. But if you do it right, like a reaction video, you can help people get to your channel, and that's a good tool to get people to your channel for sure. If it works for you, if reaction videos do work for you, go do them. Um, but yeah, I don't know of any reaction videos that have had any spikes in viewership after like the first couple days it was released. That's kind of the point here. That's kind of the point we're trying to make. Yeah, they could become really popular for that moment in time. And if that's the kind of content you want to create, great. Just understand that it's temporary. And if you want to do that, then perfectly fine. Go do that. Um, Personally, I think that I want to create content that is not temporary, that will last as long as I can make it last. And if you want to do that too, then think about what we talked about today. But if you don't, then I mean, I say screw off for this entire episode. That's fine with me. It doesn't offend me. It doesn't. I don't think it offends anybody. It shouldn't offend anybody because this is literally just one style. And if you like this style, then go with it. If you don't, then maybe this episode wasn't for you. Totally understand. But anyway, I think that wraps it up for today. I think we had a very good idea into timelessness. Maybe next week we might dive into the topic of what are the strengths of doing content and videos and stuff like that that is maybe within the moment and not timeless. Because as much as I'm not into that, I think there are some benefits to that. And like we said, like maybe to grow your channel for a certain point, it's pretty great. But I'll tell you right now, as somebody who's watched several Isaac YouTubers grow tremendously recently, um, and then have all their past thousands of videos get watched because of that, I think there are some strategies to that. I don't know how much I can talk about it personally. I might have to get a guest on or not because I haven't done it myself, but we'll get something going. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you. If you've never seen anything from Streamer Square before, well, welcome to twitch.tv/Streamer Square. Or maybe you're watching this on YouTube, youtube.com/Streamer Square. Go check us out there. Join us in the Discord at discord.gg/Streamer Square. I don't know if that's going to be changing soon or what's going on. But go follow all those things. Chat with us. We're in all these places. I'm Dan Otage. You can catch me on Twitter and Twitch and YouTube and Instagram and all that stuff at DANOTAGE. This show is live every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. And come hang out with us. We talk about different topics every single week. And do yourselves a favor. Truly, truly do yourselves a favor. Show up early and watch behind the streams right before this show. And then on all the other days you can watch that's behind the streams. That was the one I was just talking about. But you can watch the stream scene on Mondays and your brand, your business on Mondays, and then you can watch the hot fix on Wednesdays. And then there's all kinds of amazing workshops and all kinds of things. All you got to do is don't worry about any of that. Just follow the channel right here, Streamer Square. Follow the channel, stay up to date, join the Discord, see all those updates, get all those things, get it all going, and you will know when all this happens. Okay? So thanks for watching. Remember to stay positive, play more video games, and read more comics. If you want to know more, you can pick up the book, Twitch Creating, Growing, and Monetizing Your Live Stream, right on Amazon.com. I think it's the only place it's being sold right now. I think they were selling at Target before, but I think those are all sold out. So go check those out. And yeah, I'll see you next week. Goodbye, everyone. See ya.